G'day guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of the nice guy. This is something that rings true to me, and over the past year and a half in my men's community, I've seen it time and time again, and there's so many guys that know about it, but there's so many more guys who don't know about it, and it rules their life. So we're going to be diving into this concept, who was originally brought to us by Dr. Robert Glover in his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. So I'd highly recommend you go and read that. Another guy that talks about it a lot on YouTube here is Connor Beeden from Man Talk. So this is someone who I've tuned into the past. I want to recommend you guys some really respected expertise in my own eyes and the wisdom that these guys have. So check them out along with this video here today. So when it comes to the concept of the nice guy or nice guy syndrome, one of the core underlying beliefs is that the nice guy just needs to operate his life in a way where he's always pleasing other people. He's always getting approved by other people because he doesn't want to get rejected. He doesn't want to be disliked because he doesn't want to be abandoned. Now, when I first read this book, there was many points in the book where I felt a little bit triggered, but at the same time, I felt kind of enlightened. I was like, wow, that's why I do that in relationship, or that's why I treat my girlfriend like that, or that's why I allow my girlfriend to treat me like that. That's why I struggle in male friendships. And it all had to do with my upbringing, my relationship with my mother, and my relationship or lack of with my father at times. So there are some common threads that you can investigate and you'll find within the book or any other podcast or interviews that go into this. I'm also going to be dropping a little cheat sheet in the description that's going to go into identifying nice guy patterns. It's going to go more so into this core belief, and it's just going to give you a way to create awareness as well as some integration so you can start to move forward and slowly move past this pattern. So it does start earlier on in life when we do have that fear of abandonment. And sometimes we don't remember this. And abandonment doesn't mean in a physical sense that you're left there on your own, although you may have been, but it can be emotional abandonment as well. If you weren't nurtured, if you weren't supported, if you weren't made to feel seen, heard, and understood, and it gave you the understanding and the shame that you were too much for people to handle you, or you just weren't worth people's time, energy, and attention. And we carry this throughout life. So therefore we start to create this character, create this nice guy that everyone should like. And it leaks into our professional life, into our relationships, and it leaks into how we feel about ourselves and how we present ourselves. And one of the worst things that it does is that it blunts our authenticity of who we truly are. So we don't say the things we truly want to say. We don't behave in a way that is honest to us and honest to our values and our beliefs. We're constantly becoming the chameleon who adjusts for every person and every group that he is a part of. And when I think about this more and more, and when I talk about this now, it brings up those emotions in me of the times throughout primary school and high school and in my adult life and in friendships and relationship and even in my family dynamics where I just wasn't being truly me because I was trying so hard to please other people. And one of the biggest things that I think is so powerful about this concept and this sort of framework is that when we look at the challenges with mental health and well-being in this day and age, and specifically for men, how many of us are not being authentic to ourselves? How many of us fail to set boundaries and we just want to be approved by other people? We don't want to be disliked. We're scared to be rejected and kicked out of the tribe. I feel like having this understanding as a man can really give you the awareness and detail and allow you to start deconditioning some of these patterns here. Now, I will say on that topic of deconditioning or at least becoming aware of, I am not a therapist, and at this point I'm not going to call myself a nice guy coach either. So one thing I would recommend, if you notice this video or you check out the document and it really lands, one thing to seek out that I would highly recommend is a men's community, a men's group or a men's circle in your area, or maybe even online, where you can start to talk about this stuff a little bit more. Start to have these deeper conversations and start to notice these patterns and see where they come up in your life and work through it with other men through that power of brotherhood. The second thing that I'm going to recommend is seeing a therapist. Not going to lie, I'm actually on my way in about an hour's time to my first psychology session today. And I'm taking the time for myself to understand myself a little bit more. And it's not just specific to this here. There's some other things that I want to work on as well. And I want to walk the walk when I'm mentioning these things. So I truly believe if you want to do the deep inner work, these are some avenues you can go down. So find community, find brotherhood, find like a men's circle or some sort of men's mentorship that talks about this. Otherwise, look at finding a psychologist, some sort of therapist. And that's the thing. There may be one therapist who's better for you than another. Maybe it's not a clinical psychologist. Maybe it's a psychotherapist. Before we dive down that hole too much more, if we can understand that being a nice guy comes from this fear of being abandoned, like that is death to us. That is the worst possible outcome that can happen. How do we start to approach it? Well, let's think of the things that make us a nice guy. So we're constantly trying to please other people. We constantly agreeing with other people, even if we actually disagree. We say yes when we want to say no. In relationships, we don't tell our partner what we truly think at times, or we don't tell them when they've overstepped a boundary or when we just need our own space. We're not communicating our needs, and slowly over time this builds resentment, it builds passive aggression, it starts to leak out. And if I'm being honest with you, this has bled into 3 to 4 of my past relationships that were longer term relationships. And I truly believe that these were some of the main factors as to why those relationships ended. If that rings a bell for you now, if you're in relationship now and it's not going well, again, I'd really look into this because you're probably going to understand a lot of yourself and see a lot of this pattern in your relationship dynamic. And I think that's one of the most powerful places where you can create these changes and start to move into this integration process. In saying that, if we talk about it in a professional manner, I've worked as a personal trainer for the past 10 years. So when we look at avoidance of confrontation, not setting boundaries with people, the fear of rejection, I think about all the times when it comes to the fear of rejection that I didn't walk the gym floor and talk to people, even though I know I had a service that could help that person, that I always see they're walking on the treadmill. Maybe they're a little bit scared to get out to the weight sections there. Maybe the guys that has been coming to the gym for a year, but you don't really see any progress. And I'm scared. I don't want to be disliked. I don't want to be the pesky PT that comes in there. I don't want to get rejected. I don't want to be seen in a bad way by this person. When it comes to the sales process, when I've had prospective clients in front of me, basically how it works in personal training, you do their first couple of sessions and you get to that point at the end where I'm like, I know I could help this person, but there's some sort of objection that, I haven't been trained to handle. And, I think you can do a lot of work with going into objection handling and having some sort of sales coaching or training, but just understanding that I've got a service that can help this person. And for me to do that, I have to apply some pressure and work out a way for them to make this work and help them to overcome those challenges or those objections that they see without the worry that maybe it just won't work out. Maybe they'll get mad at me for putting a bit of pressure on. Maybe they'll reject that offer that I'm giving them. So it's held me back in a professional setting as well. It's held me back in business. So even if you're someone who has to make sales or you have to sell your own services and you are a part of that service, look into this pattern and see what you identify within yourself and then start to create some change there, start to test those boundaries. So when we look at that, how do we start to expose ourselves to this? Well, we look at the inverse, the opposite of what we currently do and what we've always done. If we fail to create boundaries, healthy boundaries with people, if we struggle to communicate our needs with people, if we're always agreeable with other people's opinions, even if they don't align with our own, if we're in friendships and relationships where people have a whole set of different values and beliefs and it's always creating this friction there, yet you just sit by even though there's no satisfaction and enjoyment in the relationship, can we start to look at how we step into these situations and do the opposite of what we're doing? And on that point, it doesn't mean that you just go from being the nice guy to being the bad guy, right? Because that's such a pendulum swing, and that can be the way that a lot of people take this on. It's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna set all the boundaries in the world. I'm not gonna agree with anyone. they do this complete 180, and that's not the idea. The idea is to become the integrated man. So the parts of yourself that you hold back, the anger that forms the protective energy to form boundaries, the confidence and sense of self-worth and understanding that you are deserving of receiving love in relationship, and that you are allowed to have your needs met. When you start to cherish all of your emotions, not just some of them, and you're not suppressing them and blocking them out because other people make you feel bad of it, this is where we start to form or head into that integration process. Now, I've formed this little cheat sheet, this little document. You can check that out in the subscription below. All it's going to cost you is an email, and you're going to get a lot more content in the future and little helpful documents like this, but also going into topics like breath work, the shadow side, and all little things that I'm picking up along the way of my journey as a man. If you've got any more questions on this topic, feel free to put them in the comment section. Otherwise, check out those other resources. The book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. Check out Connor Beaton at Man Talks on YouTube. He's obviously on social media as well. And follow the page, Daily Discomfort AU, or Coach Michael Stone on Instagram. I'll talk to you guys next week. I'm excited for next week's topic as well. We're actually going to lead into this a little bit more.